The aroma of freshly roasted coffee mingled with the scent of cinnamon from muffins emerging from the oven, creating that welcoming atmosphere that made Sunrise Café a special refuge in the heart of Portland, Oregon. Maya Rodriguez adjusted her burgundy apron and observed the morning bustle through the large windows facing Burnside Street. The light rain, so characteristic of the city, created a silver veil over the red brick buildings and trees beginning to take on autumn's golden colors. At 26, Maya had transformed this small cafe inherited from her grandmother into one of the neighborhood's most beloved gathering places. With walls decorated with local artists' works and the soft sound of jazz echoing through vintage speakers, the establishment breathed authenticity. It was a place where writers came seeking inspiration, where couples met for first dates, and where neighborhood residents started their mornings with Maya's genuine smile. "Good morning, Mr. Patterson." Maya cheerfully greeted the gray-haired gentleman entering while shaking his umbrella. "The usual." "You know me too well, dear," he replied with a warm smile. "A double Americano and one of those almond croissants that make my wife jealous." Maya laughed while preparing the order, her movements fluid and precise, demonstrating years of practice. The cafe was at the peak of morning rush. Portland State University students typing furiously on their laptops, executives checking emails while drinking their espressos, and the group of retirees who gathered every morning debating local politics animatedly at their favorite corner table. It was then that the door opened with more force than necessary, making the bronze bell swing violently. A tall man wearing an expensive gray suit that contrasted with his aggressive posture entered the cafe. His dark eyes swept the environment with disdain, as if evaluating something far below his standards. Maya immediately noticed the tension his presence brought. Conversations lowered in tone, and some customers instinctively moved away. The man approached the counter with heavy steps, his Italian leather shoes echoing on the wooden floor. Maya maintained her professional smile, though something in her instinct warned her to be careful. "Good morning, how can I help you?" she asked, her voice maintaining its usual warm tone. The man looked her up and down with an expression of disdain that made Maya feel uncomfortable. "I want coffee, and make it good, not the watered-down crap you probably serve in this fifth-rate place." Maya felt her cheeks flush but maintained her composure. "Of course, sir. We have several options. Would you like to try our special house blend? It's made with selected beans from—" "I didn't ask for a coffee lesson," he interrupted brusquely, slamming his hand on the counter and making some cups rattle. "I want black coffee, strong, and I want it now. And if it's not perfect, you'll make it again until you get it right." The cafe had gone completely silent. Maya could feel the stares of her regular customers, some showing concern, others indignation. Mr. Patterson had risen slightly from his chair, clearly ready to intervene if necessary. "Of course, sir," Maya replied, her voice now firmer. "One strong black coffee coming up." She turned to the espresso machine, her hands trembling slightly as she prepared the drink. Maya had faced difficult customers before, but there was something particularly intimidating about this man. Not just his rudeness, but an aura of danger she couldn't explain. When she finished preparing the coffee, she carefully placed it on the counter. "Here you go, sir. I hope you enjoy it." The man took the cup and sipped, making an exaggerated grimace. "This is garbage," he declared loud enough for the entire cafe to hear. "What kind of pathetic establishment are you running here? My housekeeper makes better coffee than this." Maya felt anger rise in her throat, but took a deep breath. "I'm sorry you didn't like it, sir. I can prepare another one for you, perhaps with a different roast." "You can stop wasting my time," he replied, throwing a $5 bill on the counter with disdain. "Keep the change. You clearly need it more than I do." It was at that moment that something inside Maya snapped. She had worked tirelessly to build this business, had treated every customer with respect and care, and wouldn't allow anyone to disrespect not only her, but also her grandmother's legacy. "Sir," she said, her voice now clear and firm, "I understand you might be having a difficult day, but that doesn't give you the right to be disrespectful to me or my establishment. If you're not satisfied with our service, You're free to find another place." The man stared at her in surprise, clearly not expecting her to respond. His eyes narrowed dangerously. "Do you know who you're talking to, girl?" "No, sir, and frankly, I don't care," Maya replied, crossing her arms. "What matters is that this is my cafe, and I won't tolerate anyone treating my customers or me with disrespect. I suggest you find the door." A murmur of approval echoed through the cafe. Mr. Patterson began to applaud slowly, and soon other customers joined him. The young student at the corner table shouted, "Well done!" and even the group of retirees nodded in approval. The man's face turned red with anger. He leaned over the counter, bringing his face close to Maya's intimidatingly. "You're going to regret this," he whispered, his voice loaded with threat. "Nobody talks to me like that and gets away with it." Maya didn't back down, though her heart was beating fast. "Are you threatening me, sir?" For a moment, the man seemed about to say something more, but then noticed that several customers had stood up and were approaching, including a large man Maya recognized as a local firefighter. The man in the suit straightened up, adjusted his tie, and smiled coldly. "You have no idea what you just did," he said quietly, only for Maya to hear. "But you'll find out soon." With that, he turned and left the cafe, slamming the door so hard it almost dislodged the bell. The cafe exploded in animated conversations. Customers approached the counter to congratulate Maya on her courage, offering words of support and encouragement. Mr. Patterson came to her and gently touched her arm. "You did the right thing, dear," he said warmly. "That kind of person needs to learn they can't treat others like trash." Maya smiled, but still felt a chill in her stomach. There was something in that man's eyes, in the way he had pronounced his last words, that made her feel this was far from over. "Thank you, Mr. Patterson," she replied, trying to sound more confident than she felt. "I just don't like bullies." The rest of the morning passed without incidents, but Maya couldn't get the encounter out of her head. She found herself looking out the window more times than usual, and every time the door opened, her heart gave a small jump. When the lunch rush began, Maya tried to focus on work. She prepared sandwiches, served soups, and chatted with customers. But part of her mind remained alert, as if expecting something to happen. Around 2 in the afternoon, when the cafe was calmer, her best friend and part-time employee, Jessica, arrived for the afternoon shift. Jessica was an energetic 24-year-old with curly red hair and a personality that lit up any environment. "Hi, boss," Jessica greeted cheerfully, tying her apron. "How was the morning?" Maya hesitated for a moment, then decided to tell about the incident. As she related what had happened, she saw Jessica's expression change from amusement to concern. "Maya, did you describe this guy to anyone? Asked if anyone knew him?" Jessica asked, biting her lower lip, a habit she had when nervous. "No, why? Do you think I should have?" "I don't know. It's just that Portland can be a small city in some circles. And the way you described his reaction, the threats, it doesn't seem normal, you know?" Maya nodded, feeling that chill in her stomach return. "I know. I felt that too. But what can I do? I can't let people like that intimidate me." "Of course not," Jessica agreed quickly. "You did the right thing. It's just, maybe we should stay alert for the next few days, okay?" The rest of the afternoon passed quietly. Maya and Jessica served the usual afternoon customers: mothers with young children who stopped for a snack after school, freelancers who came for their second caffeine dose of the day, and elderly couples who enjoyed having tea and sharing a slice of pie. When closing time came at 7 in the evening, Maya felt a bit more relaxed. Maybe she was overreacting. Maybe the man was just a common jerk who was having a bad day and taking it out on innocent people. She and Jessica cleaned the cafe, counted the cash register money, and prepared to leave. The rain had stopped and Portland's streets gleamed under the streetlights, reflecting the neon colors of store signs. "Want me to give you a ride home?" Jessica offered, jingling the keys to her small Honda Civic. "No thanks, I'll walk. I need fresh air after today," Maya replied, grabbing her denim jacket and purse. "Are you sure? I can pass by your street, it's no problem." "I'm sure. I only live 6 blocks from here, and the walk helps me relax." Jessica still looked hesitant, but nodded. Okay, but text me when you get home, all right? I promise. Maya smiled, hugging her friend. They left the cafe together, Maya carefully locking the door and double-checking that the alarm was activated. Jessica waved from her car before leaving, and Maya began her walk home. Portland streets at night had a special charm. The trees lining the sidewalks created interesting shadows under the streetlights, and Maya could hear the distant sound of music coming from the area's bars and restaurants. She passed by Powell's bookstore, still open and full of people, and the small art gallery where she had bought some of the pieces decorating the cafe. Her mind wandered as she walked, thinking about plans for the cafe. She was considering adding some vegan options to the menu and maybe organizing live music nights on weekends. Business was going well, and she felt proud of what she had built. It was when she was just 2 blocks from home that Maya noticed the footsteps behind her. At first, she didn't pay much attention. Portland was a city where many people walked, especially at night. But when she slowed down, the footsteps behind her also slowed down. When she sped up slightly, they sped up too. Her heart began to beat faster. Maya turned casually, pretending to look at a store window, and saw a male figure about half a block behind her. In the darkness, it was hard to distinguish details, but something about the man's posture made her feel uncomfortable. She continued walking, now more alert. When she reached the next corner, Maya quickly turned right, taking a slightly different route home. She waited a few seconds and then looked back. The man had turned in the same direction. Now she was sure she was being followed. Maya quickened her pace, her mind racing. She was just 1 block from home, but suddenly that seemed very far. She considered entering one of the stores that was still open, but most had already closed, and the remaining ones were mainly bars that didn't seem very welcoming. She grabbed her phone and dialed Jessica's number, but the call went straight to voicemail. Then she tried calling her older sister, Carmen, who lived on the other side of town, but she didn't answer either. The footsteps behind her were getting closer. Maya turned onto the street where she lived, a quiet residential block with typical Portland wooden houses, each with its small front garden. Her house was the 5th on the left, a small blue-gray construction with a covered porch where she liked to have coffee on weekend mornings. She was almost running now, her keys already in hand. When she reached her door, Maya looked back one last time. The man had stopped under a streetlight about 3 houses back, and now she could see him clearly. It wasn't the man from the cafe. This one was shorter, thinner, wearing dark clothes. But there was something in his posture, in the way he was watching her, that made her feel this was no coincidence. Maya quickly opened the door and entered, immediately locking behind her. She ran to the living room window and peeked through the curtains. The man was still there, now talking on the phone. After a few minutes that seemed like hours, he finally walked away and disappeared into the darkness. Maya let herself fall onto the couch, her heart still beating fast. She grabbed the phone and sent a message to Jessica. "Got home. Everything's fine." She didn't mention the man who had followed her. She didn't want to worry her friend, and part of her hoped it was just paranoia. But as she prepared for bed, Maya couldn't get the cafe man's words out of her head. "You're going to regret this. Nobody talks to me like that and gets away with it." She checked all the locks twice before going to bed, and even then it took hours to fall asleep, every night's sound making her startle. Maya had no idea that at that exact moment, in an elegant office in downtown Portland, the man she had humiliated in her cafe was reporting the incident to someone much more powerful and dangerous than she could ever imagine, and that her life was about to change in ways she never could have predicted. Maya woke to the insistent sound of the alarm, but her mind had been alert for some time. She had slept poorly, waking several times during the night with the feeling that someone was watching her house. Every creak of the old wood, every whisper of wind in the trees outside made her startle. She got up slowly, rubbing her tired eyes, and walked to the living room window. Portland's morning was typical. A thin fog covered the streets, and the golden sunlight struggled to penetrate through the low clouds. Everything seemed normal. Neighbors leaving for work, the mailman making his morning rounds, children waiting for the school bus at the corner. But Maya couldn't shake the feeling that something was different. She took a quick shower and dressed more carefully than usual, choosing a navy blue blouse that her sister Carmen always said brought out her brown eyes. Not that she was trying to impress anyone. It was more an attempt to feel more confident after the restless night. The walk to the cafe was made with Maya constantly looking over her shoulder. She took a slightly different route, passing through the busy Hawthorne Boulevard instead of her usual residential streets. There were more people, more movement, which made her feel safer. When she arrived at Sunrise Café, Maya breathed a sigh of relief, seeing that everything was exactly as she had left it the night before. She unlocked the door, deactivated the alarm, and turned on the lights, watching her small kingdom come to life once again. The morning routine always calmed her. Turning on the espresso machine, checking the bean stock, preparing fresh muffins in the oven. Each familiar task helped dispel the anxiety from the previous night. Maybe she really was overreacting. Maybe the man who had followed her was just a neighborhood resident who happened to be going in the same direction. At 6:30 in the morning, Maya opened the doors to the public. Her first customers were always the same: construction workers who needed caffeine before starting the day, nurses leaving the night shift at the nearby hospital, and some early risers who liked to start the day peacefully before the city fully awakened. "Good morning, Maya," greeted Sarah, a gray-haired nurse who had been frequenting the cafe for 3 years. "You look tired, dear. Everything all right?" Maya forced a smile. "Just a bad night's sleep. The usual? Oat milk latte and a blueberry muffin." "You know me too well," Sarah smiled back, but her experienced nurse's eyes continued studying Maya's face with concern. The morning rush was more intense than usual. Maya kept busy, preparing drinks, heating pastries, and chatting with regular customers. The familiarity of the routine was finally beginning to relax her when Jessica arrived, an hour earlier than usual. "Hi, boss," Jessica said, but her voice lacked its usual cheerfulness. "We need to talk." Maya looked at her friend with concern. Jessica looked like she had slept as poorly as she had. There were dark circles under her green eyes, and she was nervously biting her lower lip. "What happened?" Maya asked while preparing a cappuccino for a customer. "Last night, after I left here, I went home and couldn't stop thinking about that weird guy," Jessica began, lowering her voice. "So I decided to do some research." "What kind of research?" "I asked some people I know, showed his description in some neighborhood Facebook groups, that kind of thing." Jessica paused, looking around to make sure no one was listening. "Maya, I think I found out who he is." Maya's stomach contracted. "And? Remember Marcus, that guy I briefly dated last year? The one who works as a bartender downtown?" Maya nodded. She vaguely remembered Marcus, a tall, thin young man Jessica had brought to the cafe a few times. "Well, he works at some of the more sophisticated bars in the city, places where important people go. When I described the guy to him, Marcus went pale." Jessica paused again, clearly reluctant to continue. "Maya, he thinks the man you confronted yesterday might be Vincent Torino." The name meant nothing to Maya, but the way Jessica pronounced it, with a mixture of fear and reverence, made her blood freeze. "Who is Vincent Torino?" "He's..." Jessica looked around again, then leaned closer. "He's the right-hand man of someone very powerful in the city. Someone you definitely don't want as an enemy." Before Maya could ask for more details, the cafe door opened and Mr. Patterson entered, shaking his umbrella as always. The two young women immediately changed the subject, but Maya could feel the tension radiating from Jessica. The rest of the morning passed in a fog of anxiety. Maya tried to maintain normalcy, but her mind was racing. Who was this powerful person Jessica had mentioned? And what exactly could Vincent Torino, if it was really him, do for revenge? Around 10 in the morning, when the morning rush was diminishing, Maya finally had the chance to talk privately with Jessica. "You need to tell me everything you know," Maya said, her voice firm, despite the fears she felt. Jessica sighed deeply. "Okay, but promise you won't panic." "Jessica." All right. Jessica looked out the window before continuing. "Marcus told me there are rumors in the city about an organization, people who control certain parts of business in Portland. Nothing too obvious, you understand? It's not like in the movies, but they have influence in restaurants, bars, some construction companies." Maya felt like the ground was moving under her feet. Are you talking about the Mafia? Don't use that word, Jessica whispered urgently. And I don't know if that's really it. Marcus just said there are people in the city it's better not to cross, and that Vincent Torino works for one of those people. But this is ridiculous, Maya said, trying to keep her voice low. We're in Portland, not Chicago or New York, and all I did was defend my business from a rude customer. I know, it's probably nothing. Maybe Marcus is exaggerating, or maybe it's not even the same guy. Jessica tried to sound reassuring, but her expression betrayed her own concern. It was at that moment that Maya noticed the cars. Through the cafe's large front window, she could see 3 black sedans parked across the street. There was nothing particularly unusual about the cars themselves. They were expensive but discreet models, the kind that executives or lawyers might drive. But there was something about the way they were positioned, all in a row, all with dark windows, that made Maya's heart race. Jessica, she said calmly, look out the window. Do you see those black cars? Jessica turned and looked, and Maya saw her face pale. They weren't there when I arrived. Neither when I opened the cafe. The two watched for several minutes. The cars remained motionless, their engines apparently off. Maya couldn't see through the dark windows, but had the disturbing feeling that she was being watched. Maybe it's just a coincidence, Jessica murmured, but her voice didn't sound convincing. 3 identical cars parked in a row. What kind of coincidence would that be? At that moment, the cafe door opened and a man Maya had never seen before entered. He was of medium height, well dressed in a navy blue suit, and had the kind of presence that made people turn to look. His dark hair was perfectly styled, and he moved with a confidence that suggested someone accustomed to being obeyed. But what most caught Maya's attention were his eyes. They were a penetrating blue, and when he looked at her, she felt as if he could see directly through her. "Good morning," he said, his voice deep and polite, with just a slight accent Maya couldn't identify. "You must be Maya Rodriguez." The fact that he knew her name made all the alarms in her head go off. Maya exchanged a quick glance with Jessica, who had positioned herself slightly behind her. "Yes, I am," Maya replied, trying to keep her voice steady. "How can I help you?" The man smiled, but the smile didn't reach his eyes. "My name is Alessandro Benedetti. I'd like to have a conversation with you if you don't mind." "About what?" "About an incident that occurred yesterday involving one of my associates." Maya felt her stomach sink. So it was true. Yesterday's rude man really worked for someone powerful, and now that someone had sent a representative to deal with her. "I don't know what you're talking about," she lied, though she knew it wasn't convincing. Alessandro tilted his head slightly as if studying an interesting specimen. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I appreciate your loyalty to your principles. I really do. But I believe it would be in everyone's interest if we could have a frank conversation about yesterday's events." "Look, sir," Maya began, but he interrupted her gently. "Please call me Alessandro, and allow me to be clear. I'm not here to threaten or intimidate you. I'm here because I believe there was a misunderstanding that can be resolved civilly." Jessica stepped forward. "Maya, you don't have to talk to him if you don't want to." Alessandro looked at Jessica with interest. "You must be Jessica Chen. I've heard about you too." The fact that he knew Jessica's name made Maya realize they had been investigated. Someone had taken the trouble to find out who they were, where they worked, probably where they lived. "What do you want?" Maya asked directly. "A conversation. Nothing more, nothing less." Alessandro gestured toward the tables. "Can we sit? I promise I won't take much of your time." Maya looked around the cafe. There were only a few customers. Mr. Patterson at his usual table, reading the newspaper, a young student with headphones typing on her laptop, and an elderly couple sharing a cake. All seemed oblivious to the tension that had settled in. "5 minutes, Maya said finally. Alessandro smiled, and this time it seemed genuine. "Thank you. That's all I need." They sat at a corner table away from the other customers. Jessica remained behind the counter, but Maya could feel her watchful eyes on them. "First," Alessandro began, "let me apologize for Vincent's behavior yesterday. He was going through a difficult time in his personal life and unfortunately took his frustration out on you." Vincent? Maya repeated, confirming what Jessica had discovered. Vincent Torino. He's worked for me for several years and is normally much more professional. What happened yesterday was unacceptable. Maya studied Alessandro's face, looking for signs of deception. He seemed sincere, but there was something in his eyes that made her feel she was only seeing the surface of something much deeper. If he works for you, then you're responsible for his behavior, Maya said. And he threatened me. Yes, he told me about that too, and that's exactly why I'm here. Alessandro leaned slightly forward. Mrs. Rodriguez, may I ask how long you've been managing this cafe? 3 years. Why? And before that? Maya hesitated. She didn't see why she should answer his questions, but something in the way he asked, not threatening but genuinely interested, made her respond. I worked as a manager at a coffee chain downtown. Before that, I studied business administration at Portland State. And this place belonged to your grandmother. How do you know that? Alessandro smiled again. I did my research. Rosa Rodriguez was a remarkable woman. She managed this cafe for almost 40 years, didn't she? Maya nodded, surprised and somewhat touched that he knew about her grandmother. She died 4 years ago, left the cafe to me, and you've turned this place into something special. I can see that. Alessandro looked around, his eyes noting the details. The artwork on the walls, the careful decoration, the way customers seemed genuinely comfortable. You've created more than a business. You've created a community. Thank you, Maya said cautiously. But I don't understand where you're going with this. What I mean is that I understand why you defended your establishment yesterday. I understand why you didn't allow Vincent to disrespect you. Actually, I admire that. Maya blinked, surprised. You admire it? Absolutely. There are very few people willing to defend their principles when facing adversity. Most people simply lower their heads and accept bad treatment. Alessandro paused, his blue eyes fixed on hers. But not you. You stood up and said no. That requires courage. So, you're not here to punish me for what happened? Alessandro laughed, a genuinely amused sound. Punish? Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm here to apologize and to make a proposal. What kind of proposal? Well, as I mentioned, I've been doing business in Portland for many years. I have interests in various establishments in the city. Restaurants, bars, some catering companies. He paused, as if choosing his words carefully. And I'm always looking for talented people to work with me. Maya felt a chill down her spine. Work with you how? Nothing dramatic, I assure you. Simply a partnership. I could help expand your business, maybe open a second location, provide capital, connections, protection against inconveniences. The word protection made Maya realize that despite all the courtesy and charm, this was still a form of threat. And if I'm not interested in this partnership? Alessandro tilted his head, as if the question surprised him. Then you continue managing your cafe exactly as you always have. I'm not the type of person who forces partnerships, Mrs. Rodriguez. But, there's no but. Although, he paused, looking out the window at the black cars across the street. Portland can be a complicated city for small business owners. There are so many regulations, so many variables that can affect a business. Maya followed his gaze and saw that now there were 4 black cars parked on the street. Is that a threat? She asked directly. Alessandro seemed genuinely offended. A threat? Mrs. Rodriguez, I'm a legitimate businessman. I don't make threats. I simply observe that the business world can be unpredictable. He stood up from the table, adjusting his suit. You don't need to give me an answer now. Think about what we discussed. If you decide you'd like to explore a partnership, you can find me at Benedetti's, downtown. Maya knew the restaurant. It was an elegant and expensive Italian establishment that had opened the previous year. She had never made the connection with the name. Is it your restaurant? One of my businesses, yes. Alessandro extended his hand. It was a pleasure meeting you, Mrs. Rodriguez. I hope we can speak again soon. Maya hesitated for a moment, then shook his hand. His grip was firm but not intimidating. Oh, and Mrs. Rodriguez, Alessandro said, already heading for the door. Vincent won't bother you again. You have my word on that. With that, he left the cafe, leaving Maya sitting alone at the table, her mind racing with everything that had just happened. Jessica ran to her as soon as the door closed. "What did he want? What did you talk about?" Maya quickly recounted the conversation, watching Jessica's expression become increasingly worried. "Maya, do you realize what just happened, don't you?" Jessica said when she finished. "He basically offered you mafia protection. He didn't say he was mafia. He didn't need to say it. Protection against inconveniences. Portland can be complicated for small business owners." "Maya, those are classic euphemisms." Maya looked out the window. The black cars were still there, like a silent reminder that her life had fundamentally changed in the last 24 hours. "What do I do, Jess?" "I don't know," Jessica admitted. "But I think we need help. Maybe we should call the police." "And say what? That a polite man came to my cafe, apologized for his employees' behavior, and offered a business partnership." Jessica opened her mouth to respond, but then closed it, realizing Maya was right. Alessandro had been careful not to say anything that could be interpreted as a direct threat. "So what do we do?" Maya looked around her cafe, her refuge, her grandmother's legacy, her life. She had worked hard to build this and wasn't willing to give up without a fight. "We continue as always," she said finally, "and hope he's telling the truth when he said Vincent won't bother me again." But even as she said it, Maya knew things would never be the same. She had inadvertently caught the attention of very powerful people, and now was caught in a game whose rules she didn't understand. Across the street, in the black cars, men watched and waited, and Maya had no idea that her decision to defend her principles had set in motion events that would change not only her life, but the lives of everyone around her. The question now was, would she be strong enough to face what was coming? The following days passed in a strange, tense normalcy. Maya continued her usual routine, opening the cafe at 6:30 in the morning, preparing special drinks, chatting with regular customers, but always with one eye on the street, always alert to any sign that she was being watched. The black cars had disappeared the day after Alessandro's visit, but Maya didn't feel relieved. It was as if a storm had passed, leaving the air charged with the promise that another was approaching. Jessica had become even more protective, insisting on accompanying Maya home every night and arriving earlier every morning. They had developed a silent system of signals. A touch on the arm meant someone suspicious entered. A specific look meant, "Let's talk in the back." It was on a Thursday, exactly 1 week after the meeting with Alessandro, that Maya received the first indication that her life was about to become even more complicated. She was preparing a latte for Mrs. Chen, a Taiwanese lady who came to the cafe every morning for 2 years, when she noticed a man sitting alone at the corner table. There was nothing particularly unusual about him. He was young, maybe in his late 20s, wearing jeans and a brown leather jacket, but he had ordered only black coffee and had been sitting there for over an hour, occasionally looking in Maya's direction. "Jess," Maya murmured when her friend passed near the counter. "Do you know that guy at the corner table?" Jessica looked discreetly. "Never seen him before? Why?" "He's been here a long time and barely touched his coffee. Want me to go talk to him?" Before Maya could answer, the man stood up and approached the counter. Up close, Maya could see he had intelligent green eyes and a small scar on his left eyebrow. "Sorry to bother you," he said, his voice low and careful. "Are you Maya Rodriguez?" Maya felt her stomach contract. Another person who knew her name without her knowing him. "Depends on who's asking," she replied cautiously. The man looked around the cafe, then leaned slightly over the counter. "My name is Detective Marco Santos, Portland Police. I'd like to have a private conversation with you if possible." Maya exchanged a quick glance with Jessica, who had visibly paled. "About what?" Maya asked. "About Alessandro Benedetti." The name made Maya feel as if the ground had moved under her feet. "Not here," she said quickly. "Jessica, can you handle the counter for a few minutes?" Jessica nodded, still looking shocked, and Maya led the detective to the small room in the back of the cafe that served as an office and storage. "Can you show me your identification?" Maya asked as soon as they closed the door. Marco took out a leather wallet and showed his badge and identification. Maya studied carefully. Detective Marco Santos, Portland Police Department, Organized Crime Division. Organized crime, she repeated, feeling a chill down her spine. Mrs. Rodriguez, I understand you had a meeting with Alessandro Benedetti last week. How do you know that? We've been maintaining discreet surveillance on Mr. Benedetti's activities for some time. You were seen talking to him here at your café. Maya sat heavily in the only chair in the small room. So it's true. He really is what I think he is. Marco pulled a cardboard box and sat on it, getting at Maya's eye level. What do you think he is? Mafia, Maya said quietly. Marco nodded gravely. Alessandro Benedetti is what we call an underboss, the second in command of a criminal organization operating in Portland and other northwestern cities. Officially, he owns several restaurants and catering companies. Unofficially, well, let's say his businesses extend far beyond the food industry. Maya felt like she was in a movie. And he came to my cafe because you humiliated Vincent Torino, who is one of his lieutenants. Normally, this would result in unpleasant consequences for the person involved. Unpleasant consequences, Maya repeated, her voice sounding strange to her own ears. Mrs. Rodriguez, I need you to understand the gravity of the situation. Benedetti's organization isn't known for forgiving insults or disrespect. The fact that he came personally to talk to you, instead of simply solving the problem more directly, is very unusual. Maya swallowed hard. What does that mean? It means you've caught his attention in a way that goes beyond simple revenge. He's interested in you for some reason. He offered a business partnership. Marco leaned forward. Can you tell me exactly what he said? Maya related the conversation with Alessandro, watching Marco take notes in a small notebook. When she finished, he was silent for a long moment. Mrs. Rodriguez, he said finally, I need to be very clear about something. If you accept Benedetti's partnership, you'll essentially be becoming part of his operation. It might start small, maybe just money laundering through your cafe or allowing them to use your establishment for meetings, but it always escalates. And if I refuse? Marco hesitated. Honestly, we don't know. As I said, Benedetti's behavior in this situation is atypical. Normally, a refusal would be poorly received. Maya felt tears of frustration burning her eyes. So I'm trapped. No matter what I choose, my life is ruined. Not necessarily, Marco said gently. There's a third option, which is, you could help us. Maya stared at him. Help how? We've been trying to build a case against Benedetti for 3 years, but he's very careful. He never gets directly involved in anything illegal, always keeps distance from dirty operations. But if you accepted his partnership and wore a wire, you want me to be an informant? Maya interrupted, her voice rising. I know it's a lot to ask. A lot to ask? Maya stood up abruptly. Detective Santos, you're asking me to risk my life spying on a mobster. Mrs. Rodriguez, please calm down, Marco said, also standing. I understand it's scary, but... Scary? It's suicide. Maya began pacing in the small room. You yourself said they don't forgive disrespect. What do you think they'd do if they found out I was recording conversations? Marco sighed. You're right, it's dangerous. But it might also be the only way to get you out of this situation. How so? If we can get enough evidence to arrest Benedetti and dismantle his organization, you'll be free. You can continue your normal life without looking over your shoulder. And if you can't get enough evidence, and if he finds out what I'm doing before you can arrest him? Marco didn't answer immediately, and his silence was answer enough. I need to think, Maya said finally. Of course. But Mrs. Rodriguez, don't take too long. The more time passes without you giving Benedetti an answer, the more suspicious he'll become. Marco gave her a card with his personal number. Call me when you decide. And Mrs. Rodriguez, whatever your decision, don't make it alone. Talk to people you trust. After he left, Maya was alone in the small room holding the card and trying to process everything she had just heard. Her life had become a nightmare in just 1 week, and now she had to choose between 3 equally terrifying options. Accept becoming part of a criminal organization, refuse and face the consequences, or become a police informant. She returned to the main cafe, where Jessica was serving a lunch line of customers. As soon as she saw Maya, Jessica ran to her. "What did he want? Are you okay? You look pale." "Later," Maya murmured. "Let's talk after we close." The rest of the day passed in a fog. Maya served customers mechanically, prepared drinks without really thinking about what she was doing, and smiled when appropriate. But her mind was completely focused on the impossible decision she had to make. When they finally closed the cafe at 7 in the evening, Maya told Jessica everything. Her friend listened in silence, her eyes getting wider as the story progressed. "My God, Maya," Jessica said when she finished. This is insane." "I know. What are you going to do?" "I don't know." Maya let herself fall into one of the chairs, feeling exhausted. "All the options are terrible." Jessica sat beside her. "Okay, let's think about this logically. First option, you accept the partnership with Benedetti. What happens? I become part of a criminal organization. My cafe becomes a front for money laundering or whatever. And eventually, when the police find out, I go to prison along with them. Second option, you refuse, and I'm probably killed, or at least my business is destroyed somehow. Third option, you become an informant, and if they find out, I'm definitely killed. And even if they don't find out, I'll live in fear for the rest of my life." Jessica was silent for a moment. "There's a fourth option," she said finally. "Which is? You sell the cafe and leave Portland, change your name, start over somewhere else." Maya looked around the cafe, the walls she had painted, the tables she had carefully chosen, the photos of her grandmother behind the counter. "I can't do that, Jess. This place is all I have. It's my grandmother's legacy. Maya, it's just a place. You can build another cafe somewhere else." "It's not just a place." Maya stood up, her voice loaded with emotion. "It's my home. It's where I met you, where I met all our regular customers. It's where I feel connected to my grandmother. I can't just abandon all of this." Jessica sighed. "Then you need to choose between the first three options." Maya walked to the window and looked at the street. It was a typical Portland night. Light rain was beginning to fall, and the street lights created golden circles on the wet asphalt. Everything seemed so normal, so peaceful. It was hard to believe her life had become so complicated. "If I were to accept the partnership," Maya said slowly, "how do you think it would be?" "Maya, you can't be seriously considering this." "I'm considering all options. The detective said it would start small. Maybe it wouldn't be so bad." Jessica stood up and went to her. "Maya, listen to what you're saying. You're talking about joining the Mafia." "I know how it sounds, but think about it. If I accept, at least I keep my cafe. At least I stay alive. And maybe, if I'm careful, I can minimize my involvement. You think it works that way? You think you can control how much you get involved with these people?" Maya didn't answer, because deep down she knew Jessica was right. But the alternative, losing everything she had worked for, or risking her life as an informant, seemed even worse. "What if I choose to be an informant?" Maya asked. "Then you'll be helping to do the right thing. You'll be helping to get criminals off the streets, and probably dying in the process." Jessica couldn't argue against that. They remained silent for several minutes, each lost in their own thoughts. Finally, Jessica spoke. "Maya, can I ask you a question?" "Sure. What would your grandmother do?" Maya closed her eyes, trying to imagine Rosa Rodriguez in this situation. Her grandmother had been a small but fierce woman who had raised 5 children alone after her husband died in a work accident. She had managed the cafe with an iron fist, but also with a huge heart, feeding customers who couldn't pay and offering work to young people who needed a chance. "She would fight," Maya said finally. "No matter how scary it was, she wouldn't let anyone intimidate her or force her to do something wrong." "Then you already know what the right answer is." Maya opened her eyes and looked at Jessica. "Be an informant. Help the police arrest these guys, yes." Maya felt a mixture of terror and determination growing in her chest. "Do you think I'm brave enough for this?" "Maya, you faced Vincent Torino when he was being a jerk. You didn't back down when Alessandro Benedetti came here with his black cars and veiled threats. You're one of the bravest people I know. But this is different. This is the right thing to do, Jessica interrupted. And deep down, you know it. Maya nodded slowly. Jessica was right. No matter how terrifying it was, she knew what the right choice was. Okay, she said, her voice firmer than she felt. I'll call Detective Santos tomorrow. Jessica smiled and hugged her. I'm proud of you. You're not going to try to convince me to change my mind. No, because I know you've already decided, and I know it's the right decision. Jessica paused. But Maya, yes, promise you'll be careful. Promise you won't take unnecessary risks. I promise. But even as she made the promise, Maya knew she was about to enter a world where being careful might not be enough. She was about to become a piece in a dangerous game where one wrong move could cost her life. That night, Maya barely slept. She lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to imagine what her life would be like in the coming weeks. She would have to lie to Alessandro Benedetti, pretend interest in his partnership while secretly recording their conversations. She would have to continue managing her cafe as if nothing had changed, while inside she would be terrified. But she also knew it was the only way to get her life back. If she could help the police arrest Benedetti and his organization, she could go back to being just Maya Rodriguez, owner of a small cafe in Portland, instead of Maya Rodriguez, mafia target. The question was, would she be smart enough, brave enough, and lucky enough to survive what was coming? Only time would tell. Maya woke the next morning with a determination she hadn't felt in days. The decision had been made, and however terrifying it was, there was something liberating about finally having a plan of action. She dressed with extra care, choosing an emerald green blouse that Jessica always said made her look confident, and arrived at the cafe an hour earlier than normal. The morning ritual of preparing the cafe for the day calmed her, as always. She ground the beans, adjusted the espresso machine, and organized the fresh pastries in the display case. Each familiar movement helped her center herself, to remember why she was doing this, to protect this place, these people, this life she had built. At 8 in the morning when Jessica arrived, Maya had already made her final decision. I'm going to call Detective Santos now, she announced without preamble. Jessica nodded, but Maya could see the concern in her eyes. Are you sure? I am. The more I think about it, the more I realize it's the only option that allows me to look in the mirror without feeling shame. Maya went to the small office in the back and dialed the number Marcos Santos had given her. He answered on the second ring. Detective Santos. Detective, this is Maya Rodriguez. I've made my decision. There was a brief pause. And what is it? I'll help you, but I have conditions. I'm listening. First, Jessica can't be involved in this in any way. She knows nothing, participates in nothing. If something goes wrong, she stays out. Agreed. Second, if at any point I feel my life is in immediate danger, I'm out. It doesn't matter if you have enough evidence or not. That's reasonable. And third, when this is all over, when you arrest Benedetti, I want protection until I'm sure there are no more threats against me. I can guarantee that. When can we meet to discuss the details? Maya looked at the cafe's movement through the slightly open door. Tonight, after I close, but not here. I don't want anyone to see us together again. There's a small park in Laurelhurst near the lake. Do you know it? I do. At 8 tonight on the bench near the wooden bridge. I'll be alone. All right. Detective? Yes? How will I contact Benedetti? I don't have his number. Marco chuckled softly. Don't worry about that. I'm sure he'll contact you soon. Men like Alessandro Benedetti don't like leaving business unfinished. After hanging up, Maya returned to the main cafe, where Jessica was serving the morning line. The day passed surprisingly normally. Regular customers, familiar conversations, the comforting rhythm of preparing drinks and serving food. At times, Maya almost managed to forget about the approaching storm. It was around 3 in the afternoon that the storm arrived. Maya was cleaning the espresso machine when she saw a black Mercedes stop in front of the cafe. Her heart raced when Alessandro Benedetti got out of the car, wearing an impeccable gray suit and dark sunglasses despite Portland's cloudy day. Jessica, Maya murmured. He's here. Jessica looked out the window and paled. What are you going to do? What we planned. Act normally, listen to what he has to say and not commit to anything yet. Alessandro entered the cafe with the same commanding presence as before. Some customers looked in his direction. It was hard not to notice a man who radiated so much power and confidence. He approached the counter with a smile that seemed genuine. "Mrs. Rodriguez, what a pleasure to see you again." "Mr. Benedetti," Maya replied, keeping her voice neutral. "What can I serve you today?" "Actually, I was hoping we could continue our conversation from last week. Have you had time to think about my proposal?" Maya looked around the cafe. There were several customers, including Mr. Patterson at his usual table, and a mother with 2 small children near the window. "Perhaps we could talk privately." "Of course. Is there somewhere we can speak without being interrupted?" Maya hesitated. Taking Alessandro to the back office would mean being alone with him, away from customers' eyes. But it also meant Jessica wouldn't be involved in the conversation. "We can use my office," she said finally. They headed to the small room in the back, and Maya left the door slightly ajar, enough for Jessica to hear them if something went wrong, but not enough for customers to get curious. "So," Alessandro said, settling on the same cardboard box Marco had used the day before, "have you had time to consider my offer?" Maya sat behind the small table that served as her desk. "I have, but I still have some questions." "Of course. Ask whatever you want. First, what exactly would this partnership involve? You were a bit vague last time." Alessandro smiled. "I appreciate the frankness. Well, initially, it would mainly be a matter of financial consulting. I would help you expand the business, maybe open a second location. In exchange, you would occasionally allow me to use your establishment for business meetings." "What kind of business meetings?" "Nothing dramatic. Sometimes I prefer to meet with associates in a more casual environment than my office. A cafe is perfect for that. Public enough to be discreet, private enough for confidential conversations." Maya nodded, trying to seem like she was seriously considering. "And how much money are we talking about?" "To start? Let's say $50,000 initial investment. Enough to renovate this place, buy new equipment, maybe hire more staff." It was a substantial amount. More money than Maya had ever seen in her life. For a moment, she understood how normal people could be tempted by offers like this. "That's very generous," she said carefully. "I believe in investing in talented people. And you, Mrs. Rodriguez, are clearly very talented. May I ask why you're interested in me specifically? Surely there are other businesses in the city that would be more profitable for you." Alessandro leaned forward, his blue eyes fixed on hers. "Do you know what impressed me most about our first meeting? It wasn't just your courage in facing Vincent, though that was admirable. It was the way your customers reacted. They didn't just support you, they were ready to fight for you." Maya felt genuine warmth in her cheeks. "They're good people." "Exactly. And that's rare, Mrs. Rodriguez. Most business owners see their customers as numbers on a spreadsheet. You've created something special here, a real community. That has value. Value to you how?" Alessandro smiled, and for the first time, Maya saw something that seemed genuinely warm in his expression. Because communities are built on trust, and trust is the foundation of all good business. It was a skillful answer, Maya realized. He had answered her question without actually revealing anything about his true intentions. "I need more time to think," she said. "Of course. But may I ask what specifically is making you hesitate?" Maya chose her words carefully. "Well, to be honest, I've heard rumors about you, about the kind of business you run." Alessandro didn't seem surprised or offended. "What kind of rumors?" "That you're involved in activities that go beyond restaurants and catering." "Ah." Alessandro leaned back, studying Maya's face. "And what do you think about these rumors?" "I don't know what to think. That's why I don't know what to think. That's why I'm hesitating." "Mrs. Rodriguez, may I be completely frank with you?" Maya nodded, though her heart was beating fast. "I run several legitimate businesses in Portland and other cities. Restaurants, catering companies, some real estate properties. All completely legal, all paying taxes, all following all applicable regulations." He paused, as if choosing his next words carefully. Now, it's true that some of my associates may be involved in activities that operate in gray areas of the law, but I personally maintain distance from anything that could be considered illegal. It was a skillful lie, Maya realized. Technically true, but completely misleading. And if I accept your partnership, I won't be involved in these gray areas. Absolutely not. Our partnership would be strictly about legitimate business. You would continue managing your cafe exactly as you always have, just with more resources and support. Maya pretended to consider this. And if I decide I don't want to continue with the partnership at some point, then you simply return the initial investment and we go our separate ways. No hard feelings, no problems. Another lie Maya knew. People like Alessandro Benedetti didn't let partners simply go their separate ways after having access to sensitive information. How much time can I have to decide? How much time do you need? A few days, maybe a week? Alessandro nodded. A week is reasonable. But Mrs. Rodriguez, I hope you understand this is a limited offer. I can't leave it open indefinitely. I understand. Alessandro stood up, adjusting his suit. Excellent. Then we'll speak again next week. He headed for the door, then turned. Oh, and Mrs. Rodriguez, if you have more questions during the week, don't hesitate to contact me. You can find me at Benedetti's most nights. After he left, Maya was alone in the small office, trying to process the conversation. Alessandro had been charming, persuasive, and apparently sincere. If she didn't know what she knew about him, she could easily have been convinced he was just a successful businessman offering a legitimate opportunity. Jessica appeared at the door. How was it? He's good, Maya admitted. Very good. He almost convinced me he's just a normal businessman. But you weren't convinced? No, but I understand how other people could be. That night, Maya met with Marco Santos at Laurelhurst Park as arranged. The park was almost deserted, just a few night runners and an elderly man walking his dog. Marco was sitting on the specified bench, wearing jeans and a casual jacket, looking more like a local resident relaxing than a detective. How was the meeting? He asked, as soon as Maya sat beside him. Maya related the conversation in detail, watching Marco take notes in his notebook. $50,000, he murmured. That's a substantial amount for an initial investment. It's more money than I've ever seen, Maya admitted. And it's probably dirty money he needs to launder. Your cafe would be perfect for that. A small, cash-based business with hard-to-trace cash flow. Marco explained how the informant operation would work. Maya would use a small recording device, almost invisible, during her meetings with Alessandro. She would try to ask questions that would lead him to reveal details about his illegal operations. And she would report regularly to Marco about any suspicious activity. The most important thing, Marco emphasized, is not to seem too curious too quickly. Ask natural questions, the kind any person would ask when considering a business partnership. And if he suspects something, then you get out immediately. Don't try to be a hero. Don't try to get more information. You just leave and call us. Marco gave her a small device the size of a button. This records up to 8 hours of high-quality audio. You can activate it by pressing once and deactivate it by pressing twice quickly. Maya examined the device. It was surprisingly small and light. How do I explain if someone finds this? It's disguised as a decorative button. See? Marco showed how the device looked exactly like a small metal button that could be on any piece of clothing. You can sew it onto a blouse or jacket. They spent another hour discussing details, how Maya would contact Marco, what type of information would be most valuable, and what danger signs she should watch for. Remember, Marco said when they were preparing to leave, you're not alone in this. We'll have discreet surveillance whenever you're meeting with Benedetti. If something goes wrong, we'll be nearby. How close? Close enough to help if necessary. Far enough not to be detected. Maya nodded, trying to feel comforted by this. But she knew that if something really went wrong, a few seconds could make all the difference. When she got home that night, Maya sat in her kitchen with a cup of tea and the small recording device. She examined it under the light, trying to imagine what it would be like to use it. what it would be like to sit with Alessandro Benedetti, knowing she was recording every word he said. She thought of her grandmother, Rosa, who had faced so many difficulties in her life: her husband's premature death, raising 5 children alone, keeping the cafe running during recessions and neighborhood changes. Rosa had never faced anything like this, but Maya knew her grandmother would have made the same choice. "You do what's right," Rosa always said, "even when it's difficult, especially when it's difficult." Maya carefully sewed the device into a navy blue blouse, positioning it so it looked like just a decorative button among others. When she finished, it was impossible to distinguish it from the real buttons. She was ready. The next morning, Maya woke with a strange sense of calm. The decision had been made, the preparations were complete, and now it was just a matter of waiting for Alessandro to contact her again. She didn't have to wait long. At 10 in the morning, while she was preparing a latte for a regular customer, Maya saw the familiar black Mercedes stop in front of the cafe. But this time, Alessandro didn't get out of the car. Instead, a young man Maya didn't recognize entered the cafe and approached the counter. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I have a message from Mr. Benedetti." Maya felt her heart race, but kept her expression neutral. "Yes? He would like to invite you to dinner tonight, at Benedetti's, at 8 o'clock. He said it would be a good opportunity to discuss the partnership details in a more appropriate environment." Maya looked out the window at the Mercedes. Through the darkened glass, she could see Alessandro's silhouette in the back seat. "Tell Mr. Benedetti I accept the invitation," she replied. The young man nodded and left. Moments later, the Mercedes departed. Jessica, who had heard the entire exchange, approached Maya. "Are you really going?" "I have to go." "That's what I'm doing all this for." "Maya, a restaurant at night. That's much more intimate than a conversation at the cafe during the day." "I know. But it also means he might feel more comfortable talking about things he wouldn't say in public." Jessica still looked worried, but nodded. "Just be careful, okay?" "I always am." But even as she said it, Maya knew she was about to enter completely unknown territory. A dinner with Alessandro Benedetti would be a real test of her ability to maintain the facade, to ask the right questions, and to come out alive with valuable information. The game had officially begun. Maya spent the rest of the day trying to maintain normalcy, but her mind was completely focused on the dinner awaiting her. She had sent a discreet message to Marco Santos, informing him about the invitation, and he had confirmed there would be surveillance at the restaurant. This reassured her somewhat, but she knew that once inside Benedetti's, she would be essentially alone. At 6 in the evening, Maya closed the cafe and went home to prepare. She chose a simple but elegant black dress, something appropriate for a sophisticated restaurant, but that would also allow the recording device to remain hidden. She checked the small button several times, making sure it was well attached and working properly. Before leaving, Maya called her sister Carmen. "Hi Maya, what a surprise. How are you?" "I'm fine, Carmen. I just wanted to hear your voice." "Is everything all right? You sound strange." Maya hesitated. She desperately wanted to tell someone in the family what was happening, but knew it would be dangerous to involve Carmen. "Just a difficult day at work." "Carmen?" "Yes. I love you, you know that, right?" "Of course I know. I love you too, little sister. Are you sure everything's all right?" "I am. I just wanted you to know." After hanging up, Maya looked at herself in the mirror one last time. The woman staring back seemed calm and confident, but Maya could see the fear in her own eyes. She took a deep breath, activated the recording device, and left home. Benedetti's was located in the heart of Portland's financial district, occupying the ground floor of an elegant office building. Maya had passed by it many times, but had never entered. The facade was discreet but clearly expensive. Dark glass, golden letters, and a uniformed doorman at the entrance. "Good evening," the doorman greeted her as she approached. "Do you have a reservation?" "I'm expected by Mr. Benedetti." The man's face immediately changed, becoming more respectful. "Of course, madam. Please follow me." The restaurant's interior was even more impressive than the facade. Tables with impeccable white tablecloths, soft golden lighting, and the low sound of Italian jazz created an atmosphere of discreet luxury. Maya noticed that despite being a Friday night, the restaurant wasn't crowded. There were perhaps a dozen occupied tables, all by people who looked important and prosperous. Alessandro was waiting at a corner table, partially hidden by a decorative divider. He stood when he saw her approaching, wearing a navy blue suit that probably cost more than Maya earned in a month. "Mrs. Rodriguez, what a pleasure to see you again," he said, kissing her hand in a chivalrous manner. "You look beautiful tonight." "Thank you for the invitation," Maya replied, allowing him to help her sit. "This place is impressive." "Thank you. It took me 2 years to get exactly the atmosphere I wanted." Alessandro sat across from her. "I hope you like Italian food." "I love it." A waiter appeared immediately, as if waiting for an invisible signal. Alessandro ordered an expensive bottle of red wine without consulting Maya, and she didn't protest. She needed to maintain the impression that she was impressed with his power and wealth. "So," Alessandro said after the waiter moved away, "have you had more time to think about our conversation?" "I have, and I have to admit I'm intrigued." Maya leaned slightly forward, trying to seem interested but still cautious. "But I still have some concerns." "Of course. What are they?" "Well, $50,000 is a lot of money. Where does this capital come from?" Alessandro smiled. "From the profits of my other businesses. As I mentioned, I have several successful ventures. Can you tell me more about them? I want to better understand the type of organization I'd be associating with." "Sure." Alessandro leaned back as the waiter served the wine. "I have 3 restaurants in Portland, 2 in Seattle, and 1 in Vancouver. I also run a catering company that serves corporate and private events throughout the Northwest. That must generate considerable revenue." "It does, but like any successful businessman, I also have other interests." Maya felt her pulse quicken. "What kind of other interests?" Alessandro took a sip of wine, studying Maya's face. "Mrs. Rodriguez, can I trust your discretion?" "Of course. Sometimes people with a lot of money need special services. Maybe they want to invest money in ways that don't appear in their usual tax records. Maybe they need help moving funds between different jurisdictions, that kind of thing." Maya nodded, trying to seem like she was understanding and accepting these needs as normal. "And my cafe would fit into this how?" "Cash-based businesses are very useful for diversifying revenue streams. A prosperous cafe can process a surprising amount of cash transactions without raising suspicion." It was exactly the kind of admission Marco was hoping for. Maya tried to keep her expression neutral while internally celebrating. "I understand," she said. "And what kind of volume are we talking about?" "To start, maybe $10,000 to $15,000 per month going through your establishment. Nothing dramatic, nothing that would seem out of the ordinary for a successful cafe. And this money would come from where?" Alessandro paused, and Maya wondered if she had gone too far. But then he smiled. "Mrs. Rodriguez, I appreciate your curiosity, but some questions are better left unanswered. Let's just say I have clients who value privacy in their financial transactions." At that moment, the waiter brought the main courses. Maya had ordered the osso buco, more from nervousness than real appetite. The food was delicious, but she could barely taste it. Her mind was focused on asking the right questions without seeming suspicious. "Alessandro," she said, using his first name for the first time, "may I ask how you got into this line of business?" He laughed. "That's a long story. My family came from Sicily in the 1950s. My grandfather started with a small restaurant. My father expanded into catering. I simply diversified even further. And Vincent, how does he fit into the organization?" Alessandro's expression darkened slightly. "Vincent is, let's say, my operations manager. He takes care of the more practical aspects of business while I focus on strategy and client relations." He seemed very intense when he came to my cafe. "Vincent has his qualities, but subtlety isn't one of them. That's why I prefer to deal personally with potential partners like you." Maya nodded, taking another sip of wine. The alcohol was helping calm her nerves, but she knew she needed to keep her head clear. Alessandro, may I ask a direct question? Of course. If I accept this partnership, will I be safe? I mean, if something goes wrong, if there are problems with the law. Alessandro leaned forward, his expression becoming serious. Maya, may I call you Maya? Let me be very clear about something. I protect my partners, always. If you work with me, you'll have my complete protection. And what does that mean exactly? It means that if anyone tries to harm you or your business, they'll have to deal with me. And it means that if there are any legal problems, you'll have access to the best lawyers money can buy. It was another valuable admission. Alessandro was essentially confirming he had enough power to protect people, which implied influence over local authorities or intimidation capability. That's reassuring, Maya said. It's meant to be. Maya, I want you to understand something. I'm not interested in forcing anyone to work with me. I prefer partnerships based on mutual benefit and trust. And if someone decides they don't want to be your partner anymore? Alessandro paused, his expression becoming carefully neutral. Well, that would depend on the circumstances. If someone simply wanted to follow a different path, that could be arranged. But if someone tried to harm me or my business. He didn't finish the sentence, but the implication was clear. I understand, Maya said quickly. The rest of the dinner passed with Alessandro telling stories about his restaurants and asking questions about Maya's plans for the cafe. He was charming and attentive, and Maya could see how it would be easy to be seduced by his combination of power, wealth, and personal charisma. When they finished eating, Alessandro ordered grappa for both. So Maya, what's your decision? Maya pretended to hesitate. It's a big decision. It would completely change my life. For the better, I guarantee. Can I have a few more days? I want to be absolutely sure before committing. Alessandro studied her face for a long moment. Of course. But Maya, I hope you understand that opportunities like this don't come frequently. And I can't wait indefinitely. I understand. How about Monday? I can give you my final answer on Monday. Monday is perfect. Alessandro raised his grappa glass. A toast to the future, whatever form it takes. Maya toasted with him, trying to ignore the irony of the situation. When they left the restaurant, Alessandro insisted on taking her home in his Mercedes. During the trip, he was the perfect gentleman, talking about art, music, and Portland's urban development plans. Anyone watching would think they were seeing a successful man courting a young businesswoman. Thank you for dinner, Maya said when they arrived at her house. It was enlightening. The pleasure was mine. And Maya, I sincerely hope you choose to work with me. I think we could accomplish great things together. Maya got out of the car and waved as Alessandro departed. Only when the Mercedes's taillights disappeared around the corner did she allow her shoulders to relax. Inside the house, she immediately called Marco Santos. How was it? He asked without preamble. I got everything, Maya said, her voice trembling slightly from adrenaline. He admitted money laundering, talked about clients who need to move funds illegally, and made it clear he protects his partners from legal problems. Excellent. That's exactly what we needed. Marco, he wants an answer on Monday. Perfect. That gives us the weekend to prepare the next phase. Next phase? Maya, what you got tonight is enough for us to start building a case, but we need more. We need evidence of specific crimes, names of others involved, details about the operations. Maya felt her stomach sink. You want me to accept the partnership? For a while, yes. Just long enough for us to get solid evidence. Marco, this is very dangerous. If he finds out. I know, but Maya, you did an incredible job tonight. He trusts you. We can use that. Maya sat heavily on her couch. For how long? A few weeks at most. As soon as we have enough evidence, we'll make the arrests and you'll be free. And if something goes wrong before that, it won't. We'll be watching you all the time. After hanging up, Maya sat in the dark of her living room, processing everything that had happened. In one night, she had transformed from victim to active participant in a complex police operation. And on Monday, she would have to look Alessandro Benedetti in the eyes and lie to him, knowing she was helping build the case that would put him in prison. She thought of her grandmother Rosa and wondered what she would think of all this. Rosa had always said to do the right thing. But Maya doubted her grandmother had ever imagined a situation like this. The weekend passed in a fog of anxiety and preparation. Marco met with Maya on Saturday to review the recording and plan the next phase. The audio was clear and incriminating. Alessandro had essentially confessed to money laundering and bribery of authorities. When you accept the partnership on Monday, Marco explained, he'll probably start introducing you gradually to the operations. First, maybe just allowing them to use your cafe for meetings. Then, they'll start processing money through your business. And I record everything. Everything. Conversations, meetings, anything that could be evidence. How long can I keep this up without him suspecting? People like Alessandro are paranoid by nature, but they're also arrogant. If he believes you're genuinely interested in the money and protection he offers, it could take weeks or even months for him to suspect anything. And if he suspects before that? Marco didn't answer immediately, and his silence was answer enough. On Monday morning, Maya opened the cafe as always, but her mind was completely focused on the meeting awaiting her. Alessandro had said he would stop by around noon to hear her decision. At 11:30, Jessica noticed Maya was constantly checking the clock. "Is he coming today?" Jessica asked. "Yes, and I'm going to accept the partnership." Jessica paled. "Maya, are you sure this is safe?" "No," Maya admitted, "but it's the only way to end this once and for all." Exactly at noon, the familiar black Mercedes stopped in front of the cafe. Alessandro entered alone this time, wearing a gray suit and smiling confidently. "Maya," he greeted her warmly, "I hope you had a good weekend to think." "I did, and I've made my decision." Alessandro leaned slightly forward. "And what is it?" Maya took a deep breath, discreetly activated the recording device, and sealed her fate. "I accept your proposal. I want to be your partner." Alessandro's smile widened. "Excellent. I knew you'd make the right decision." He extended his hand, and Maya shook it, knowing she was shaking hands with the man she was helping to destroy. "Welcome to the family, Maya," Alessandro said. "I think this is the beginning of a very profitable partnership." If he knew that every word was being recorded, and that in a few weeks he would be wearing handcuffs instead of expensive suits, maybe he wouldn't be smiling so confidently. But Maya knew. And while she smiled back and pretended enthusiasm for the partnership, she was counting the days until she could go back to being just the owner of a small cafe in Portland, instead of a police informant infiltrated in the mafia. The game had entered its final phase. Now it was just a matter of who would be smarter, and who would survive to tell the story. The morning sun filtered through the windows of Sunrise Café. Maya was preparing a latte when Jessica entered with the newspaper. "Did you see? Alessandro got 25 years, Vincent 15. The entire organization was dismantled." Maya smiled. "Operation Coffee Justice? Seriously? Could be worse." Mrs. Chen approached. "Maya, you're a hero. You risked your life for our community." Detective Marco Santos entered for his morning coffee. "Maya, what you did was extraordinary. You saved many lives." After he left, Jessica asked, "How do you really feel?" "Free," Maya replied. "For the first time in almost a year, I feel truly free." The cafe was busier than ever. The publicity had been good for business. "Jessica, I'm thinking of promoting you to manager," Maya announced. "Really? Thank you." Mr. Patterson entered, greeting. "Good morning, my dear hero." While preparing his coffee, Maya reflected on everything. She had discovered she was stronger and braver than she had imagined. She had faced her fears and done the right thing. "Have you ever thought about writing a book?" Jessica asked. "Maybe," Maya smiled. "But first, let's focus on running this cafe. We have a new manager to train." Maya had learned that heroes don't wear capes. Sometimes they just wear aprons and serve coffee. And when the right moment comes, they do what needs to be done. Sunrise Café would continue to be a place where the community gathered, where stories were shared, and where a cup of coffee could be the beginning of something extraordinary.